San Diego police have just released new video of a group of men they believe broke into the Starlight Theater a couple of weeks ago, stealing tens of thousands of dollars worth of items. News 8's Shannon Handy joins us live from Balboa Park with the images and what a theater official is saying about it tonight. Shannon.
Carlos, Starlight Theater officials believe the thieves got in through this gate, but if you take a look at this door, that was also bashed in. Now, the theater is undergoing a massive overhaul, so this break-in has really set them back. The hope is that these new images will help track down those responsible.
The video was captured on October 19th. You can see several cars parked outside the Starlight Theater in Balboa Park. Later, as most of the vehicles leave, at least two remain. It appears as though the occupants are changing clothes. A closer look shows four men. In cell phone video given to San Diego police, you can hear one of them mention having a TV for sale.
Hey, I got a TV for $50.
Detectives believe these are the men involved in a break-in that same night at the Starlight Theater, which is currently undergoing a multi-million-dollar renovation project. The theater shut down in 2012.
Both these doors were broken open.
Steve Stopper with the Save Starlight campaign showed us the damage, giving us a laundry list of the items stolen, totaling nearly $30,000.
And all our guitars we've been collecting in benefit of Starlight were on the walls, and these were all gone. There was a sound system in here that got taken. They forgot one of the subwoofers, but they took stuff out of their closets. The food had been taken, mostly video editing and audio equipment.
Efforts to re-secure the theater are already underway, but Steve says replacing the items stolen is going to take time and money.
And we have not the resources that we used to have too, so it's hard. It's hard for everybody involved.
Steve's hopeful these new images will help. In addition to what was captured on surveillance and cell phones, police also provided stock photos of the vehicles they say the suspects were possibly in: a white Jeep Liberty, a green Ford Expedition, and a dark-colored Subaru Crosstrek.
Whoever it is, somebody out there that's actually watching this right now is going to know one of these people. There's just too many people involved.
And back out here live, you can see more of the doors that were damaged. So these guys really had a field day here. Of course, if you have any information, contact San Diego Police. Crime Stoppers is offering up to a $1,000 reward. You can remain anonymous. And if you'd like more information on what they're doing to revive this place, we've put a link on our website. Just go to cbsafe.com and click on the hot button. Carlo and Barberly.
Shannon, that had to be kind of a setback for them. Does this affect when they're going to actually reopen?
Yeah, Carlo, I don't know if you noticed, but in the video, the theater has a long way to go itself. But the official told me they were actually planning to reopen the snack bar up here and serve coffee to people going by. So I asked, when is that going to happen? And he said at this point, they just don't know because they lost so much money with this break-in. So hopefully, if we can nab the guys who did this, they can open the snack bar at least within the next few months, but we'll see.
What a shame. All right. Thanks, Shannon.